It just means this case remains perpetually unresolved. It's the epicenter of the 190s segment of the list.
And less than a month after Foster's death, the Whitewater probe suffered another loss that just deepened that pattern of skepticism.
John Parnell Walker. He was an RTC investigator, specifically probing Whitewater and the Madison Guarantee Savings and Loan.
And he fell from a balcony at the Lincoln Towers in Arlington, Virginia.
Let's contextualize Walker's role. The RTC, the Resolution Trust Corporation, was the government entity set up to clean up and liquidate the assets of failed S&Ls during that crisis.
So Walker was investigating the direct financial heart of the Whitewater scandal.
Official ruling: suicide. But the sources all point out the highly suspicious timing is mid-probe. It's directly following the death of the White House counsel and the fact there were no witnesses to the fall.
Right. When a key investigator into a high-level financial scandal dies mid-probe, especially right after the administration's main lawyer linked to that same scandal dies, the statistical coincidence argument starts to wear extremely thin for skeptics.
We also have James Wilson. He died by hanging in D.C. in May of '93, so just before Foster.
The sources allege he had financial Whitewater ties that may have come from knowledge of the earlier Mingnack activities, so it links the D.C. corruption right back to its Arkansas origins.
And the official ruling was suicide. But notably, no note or explanation was ever found.
Then the violence returns to Arkansas in September of '93 with Jerry Parks.
Parks was the former head of security for the Clinton campaign in Arkansas. He was shot 10 times in his car near Little Rock.
And the motive cited in the allegations was extremely personal. Critics claimed he had compiled this damaging, highly confidential dossier on Bill Clinton's alleged extramarital affairs.
And crucially, the sources emphasize that Parks' home had been burglarized shortly after Vince Foster's death, which suggests someone was searching for documents or information.
Official ruling: unsolved homicide. This case is vital because it connects that D.C. scandal focus back to the Arkansas base and to ongoing political damage control. It suggests potential motives tied to personal secrets, not just financial fraud.
And as the pressure just kept intensifying through the mid-90s, we see deaths connected to specific allegations of sexual harassment and assault.
Ed Willie, a Clinton fundraiser, found shot in the Virginia woods in November 1993. The official ruling was suicide, reportedly amid documented financial ruin and bankruptcy.
But the context that the source material cites is just explosive and undeniable. Willie's wife, Kathleen Willie, was scheduled to make very serious accusations of sexual assault against Bill Clinton.
And she claimed the alleged assault occurred the day before Ed's death.
That proximate timing, regardless of the official finding of suicide linked to financial issues, is enough to permanently cement his case within the skeptical narrative as, a death of convenience.
And now we come to what the sources identify as one of the most specific, non-negotiable forensic anomalies of the entire list. It involves two related deaths in 1994.
Kathy Ferguson. She was the ex-wife of a state trooper named Danny Ferguson, who was a key witness in the Paula Jones harassment lawsuit.
She died by gunshot in her apartment in Sherwood, Arkansas in May 1994. The official ruling was suicide, and a note was found.
But here is the unassailable contradiction that draws so much focus in the documentation. Kathy Ferguson was confirmed to be right-handed.
But the fatal gunshot wound was on the left side of her head.
That is a fundamental forensic contradiction.
It's exceptionally difficult for official investigators to dismiss. A right-handed person inflicting a lethal wound to the left temple requires an extremely unusual, awkward, maybe even impossible configuration, depending on the firearm.
For skeptics, this discrepancy just lends tremendous weight to the theory of foul play. It creates a serious, measurable rift between the physical evidence and the official conclusion.
And this story has a tragic, compounding follow-up. Just 1 month later, in June 1994, Bill Shelton, who is Kathy Ferguson's fiancé and an Arkansas officer himself.
He died by gunshot at her grave.
And the sources note he had been openly and vehemently disputing her suicide ruling.
Official ruling for him? Also suicide. This pattern suggests this powerful ripple effect of skepticism and trauma, all stemming from that initial, forensically questionable death.
And as the Whitewater investigation continued, figures connected to that initial Amanda nexus resurfaced again.
Florence Martin. She was the accountant for Barry Seal's CIA front. She allegedly held key financial documents that detailed the flow of money from Minna.
She died in October 1994 from 3 distinct gunshots in her Texas home.
And the official ruling was homicide, but it was claimed by police to be a simple robbery for $800.
For skeptics, the idea that a critical accountant holding potentially explosive political documents linking state officials to CIA drug fronts would be killed by 3 gunshots over a paltry $800 right in the middle of these escalating Washington scandals. It just strained credibility past its breaking point.
Finally, in the mid-90s, you have the bizarre and highly suspicious case of Barbara Wise in November 1996.
She was found partially nude and bruised in a locked Commerce Department office in Washington, D.C.
The sources allege she was working on sensitive campaign finance probes alongside John Huang, a DNC fundraiser who later pleaded guilty to campaign finance felonies.
And the official ruling was natural causes.
But the critical absence here, the thing that fuels the profound doubt, is that despite the highly unusual and suspicious circumstances, partially unclothed, bruised, in a locked government office, no autopsy details were ever officially released or published.
It just adds another layer to the pattern we've established. Deaths ruled natural or suicide that lack full forensic transparency or detailed public evidence.
The circumstantial evidence of the locked room, the bruises, the nature of her sensitive work, it just creates a significant hurdle for that official ruling to overcome.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the pattern doesn't just end with the 1990s White House tenure. The sources show these high-profile deaths continuing with the modern era.
Involving figures connected to recent major scandals. It suggests the risks for those with sensitive information remain, well, active.
That's right. The skeptical narrative seems to adapt and endure. It attaches itself to individuals who pose a threat of disclosure about more contemporary activities or relationships, often centered around the modern political landscape.
A significant case from the 2016 election cycle involves Victor Thorne.
Thorne wasn't an insider. He was a documented and highly visible critic. He was known for writing these hard-hitting anti-Clinton books, titles like Crowning Clinton and Hillary and Bill, The Sex Volume.
He died in August of 2016 from a gunshot on a Pennsylvania mountain. The official ruling was suicide, which was confirmed by his family. It reportedly occurred on top of a mountain during his birthday hike.
His death added a figure who was actively campaigning against the Clintons through his writing and investigations to the overall list.
Then comes the case that generated global scrutiny and connects Bill Clinton to a figure who threatened to expose the entire world's elite.
Jeffrey Epstein.
August 2019. He died by hanging in his Manhattan jail cell. He was, of course, a convicted sex trafficker with documented Bill Clinton flight logs and White House visits.
The official ruling was suicide, but the circumstances immediately triggered global skepticism.
The key nuances and anomalies cited in the sources are, first and foremost, procedural. The two guards who were responsible for monitoring him in a high-security federal jail were allegedly asleep for nearly 3 hours.
And crucial security cameras outside his cell were reportedly either off or malfunctioning at the time of his death.
The total failure of standard security protocols in such a high-profile case is damning enough. But the forensic detail that fueled the skepticism most intensely was the presence of broken bones in Epstein's neck.
Specifically the hyoid bone, which is often cited as being potentially indicative of manual strangulation, or at least a highly violent struggle.
Pathologists do note it can occur in some hanging suicides, particularly in older individuals, but
the sources are careful to stress that no evidence of a direct Clinton order or involvement has ever been cited in the official inquiries.
no. However, the sheer, highly suspicious circumstances, given the extraordinary political and financial stakes involved and Epstein's documented ability to expose elites, it fed directly and intensely into this long-standing body count narrative. It created a modern international echo of the 1990s DC scandals.
And moving to the media angle, which ties directly back to contemporary political integrity, we have the death of Christopher Sine in June 2021.
Sine was the reporter who famously broke the controversial story of the clandestine tarmac meeting between Bill Clinton and then Attorney General Loretta Lynch in Phoenix.
Right before the 2016 election.
That meeting was immensely sensitive because it happened right as the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server was reaching its peak. Many critics viewed it as compromising the integrity of a high-profile federal investigation.
Sine was found in his Alabama apartment. The official ruling was apparent suicide, though his family kept the specific details private, which is their right.
His death, however, was quickly absorbed into the ongoing theories because of the critical and highly sensitive nature of the story he broke. He was a direct threat to the narrative of neutrality surrounding that 2016 investigation.
And finally, we arrive at what is maybe the most unusual and forensically baffling case cited in the modern era, and it brings us full circle right back to Arkansas.
Mark Middleton, May 2022.
Middleton was a former Clinton advisor, notable for having authorized Jeffrey Epstein's visits to the White House back in the 1990s.
The official ruling was suicide on his Arkansas ranch. But this case, according to the source material, it presents the single most extreme forensic inconsistency since the James Mallon decapitation back in 1989.
The documents supply detail the highly unusual method. Middleton allegedly died by a shotgun blast to the chest.
And his body was found simultaneously hanged from a tree with an extension cord noose.
The sources emphasize the sheer physical implausibility of this dual method being self-inflicted. The force and trauma of a shotgun blast to the chest would render a person immediately incapable of performing the complex action of securing an extension cord to a tree and then hanging themselves.
Furthermore, the sources noted that specific details about gun residue weren't specified, which just compounded the extreme skepticism. It stands as this powerful contemporary example of an official conclusion clashing violently and dramatically with basic physical logic and the documented evidence.
This type of contradiction is what ensures the narrative endures.
It is. If we look across all three of these eras, Arkansas, Washington, and the modern echoes, the structural similarities are just striking. The sources provide a compelling, if disturbing, narrative of recurring procedural flaws.
So what does this all mean for someone listening? We've synthesized these three distinct chapters. The localized men-and-drug nexus, defined by extreme violence and what skeptics call forensic incompetence.
Then the concentrated political purge of the Whitewater era, involving high-level insiders and these highly suspicious suicides that lack transparency.
And finally, the modern high-profile connections where procedural failures are rampant and the anomalies just defy simple logic.
The most critical takeaway, the thing that connects the 1980s teens to the 2022 advisor, it isn't the overall death toll. It's the common thread across all the clusters.
What is?
The official rulings, suicide, accident, natural causes, are consistently contradicted by specific, measurable forensic anomalies or procedural oddities that independent investigators or family members highlighted in the source material.
Let's just quickly recap the most flagrant contradictions cited, because these are the details that anchor the skeptical narrative and make it so durable. You had Keith McCaskill's.
113 stab wounds ruled a suicide in 1988. a finding that just defies the standard definition of self-harm.
You had James Melam's decapitation initially ruled natural causes in 1989, a shocking display of procedural failure.
We had the massive scrutiny around Vince Foster, with the crucial detail of missing soil on his shoes and missing x-rays in 1993, suggesting a staged scene right at the epicenter of political power.
And Kathy Ferguson's right-handed person with a left-side gunshot in 1994. That's a contradiction between physical evidence and the official finding that you can't rationally explain away by accident.
And finally, the most recent and physically unbelievable example, Mark Middleton's death involving a shotgun wound combined with a hanging in 2022, which challenges fundamental physics and pathology standards.
This brings us back to the statistic versus the pattern, and this is the crucial distinction for you, the listener.
High-power political figures over decades naturally have large social and professional networks. Tragic or accidental losses are statistically inevitable.
Sure.
However, the enduring public skepticism is fueled by the fact that the sheer volume of cases is combined with a recurring repetitive pattern where the official findings clash not with vague theories, but with these highly specific, documented forensic facts.
That is the essential insight. The value here for the learner isn't in achieving certainty about whether some single, coordinated conspiracy exists.
Wow.
The value is in understanding how the confluence of extraordinarily high political stakes, the integrity of an administration, national security secrets, global financial fraud, and these repetitive, documented forensic inconsistencies creates a persistent, powerful, and durable counter-narrative to official history.
And this counter-narrative has proven so resistant to official repudiation, precisely because the government channels tasked with investigating these deaths have repeatedly failed, according to the source material, to provide transparent and forensically sound explanations for the specific physical anomalies presented.
It remains a powerful commentary on the perception of obscured truth in high-stakes political life.
Indeed. We open this deep dive by referencing a quote cited early in the list, a perspective on knowledge and secrecy. And it seems like an appropriate way to leave you with a final provocative thought on the source material's perspective.
What's that?
Proverbs 25.2 urges searching concealed matters.
That's a compelling note to end on. Thank you for providing the stack of material for this comprehensive and